The studio lights blazed as the cameras began to roll. Millions of viewers tuned in for President Donald Trump's live interview with America's most controversial talk show host, Ethan Kross. Known for his fearless attitude, Ethan had a reputation for never backing down, even from the most powerful figures. When Trump entered the studio, the crowd applauded, but Ethan remained seated. No handshake, no smile. "Welcome, Mr. President," Ethan said coolly. Trump nodded calmly. "Good to be here, Ethan." Within minutes, the clip of Ethan's cold greeting went viral. Online audiences were split. Some praised his courage, others condemned his disrespect. Behind the scenes, producer Clara Jennings whispered, "Keep rolling. This is TV gold." But Ethan wasn't performing for ratings. His bitterness ran deeper. Years ago, his father, a retired firefighter, had lost his pension. Ethan blamed the government for it, and now, face to face with the nation's leader, his resentment was impossible to hide. Trump leaned forward. "You seem upset," he said softly. "Let's talk about that." The studio fell silent. Ethan hesitated. He had expected a political sparring match, not a conversation. "Mr. President," he began, "do you really understand how many hardworking Americans feel betrayed? People like my father gave everything and were left with nothing." Trump's expression softened. "I understand disappointment, Ethan. Tell me what happened to your father." Ethan's voice tightened. "He lost his pension. 35 years of service gone overnight. He risked his life for this country and no one cared." Trump folded his hands. "I do care. And maybe tonight we can start figuring out what went wrong." Ethan scoffed. "You can't fix decades of broken promises in one night." "Maybe not," Trump replied. "But we can start by listening." For the first time, Ethan paused. He hadn't expected empathy. The camera zoomed in as tension gave way to sincerity. Clara whispered into her headset, "Don't cut. This just got real." "What's your father's name?" Trump asked. "Daniel Kross," Ethan answered quietly. "He used to say the government forgot the people who built it." Trump's gaze was steady. "I've met thousands of Daniels, men who gave everything and got nothing back. That's not how it should be." Ethan frowned, unsure if Trump's words were genuine or just for show. "You really expect people to believe that?" "I expect people to see actions, not words," Trump replied. "Maybe you can help make that happen." "Me?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "I'm just a talk show host." "You have a voice that millions listen to," Trump said. "If you want change, use it to help, not to hurt." The audience applauded softly. Ethan looked unsettled, his anger giving way to confusion. Clara whispered, "It's not an argument anymore. It's a story." When the cameras went off for a break, Ethan leaned back, exhaling deeply. Trump remained composed, sipping water. "Off the record," Ethan muttered. "Do you actually care about people like my dad?" Trump looked at him. "Every leader fails someone, Ethan. The question is, do they stop trying?" Ethan didn't answer. Trump continued quietly. "You remind me of someone. A man who worked hard, never complained, just wanted to be heard." "Who?" Ethan asked. "My father," Trump said simply. "He built buildings with his hands before I ever built them with my name." Ethan stared. "Then why does it feel like you've forgotten people like him?" "Maybe," Trump said, "because people see headlines, not heart." As the countdown resumed, Ethan wasn't sure whether he was sitting across from a politician or a man speaking from experience. "Mr. President," Ethan began as the show returned live, "if you care that much, prove it. Do something for people like my father." Trump nodded. "Challenge accepted." The audience gasped. Ethan blinked in disbelief. "I didn't mean—" "You were right," Trump interrupted. "If your father was failed, that's on leadership. I can't change the past, but I can meet him." "Meet him?" Ethan repeated. "Yes," Trump said. "Tomorrow." The studio erupted with chatter. Producers shouted through Clara's headset, "This is unbelievable!" "You're serious?" Ethan asked. "Completely," Trump replied. "You bring your father. I'll bring the cameras. Let's talk, man to man." That night, Ethan sat alone in his dressing room. The glow from his phone lit his anxious face as he finally dialed a number. "Dad," he said softly. Ethan, came the raspy voice. You sound nervous. The show go okay? Ethan hesitated. I might have invited the president to meet you. Silence. Then Daniel Cross chuckled weakly. Son, you've lost your mind. Maybe, Ethan admitted. But he asked to. He said he wants to hear your story. Daniel sighed. Politicians love stories. They just never listen. This felt different, Ethan said quietly. He looked me in the eye. You really think he'll show up? Daniel asked. I don't know, Ethan replied honestly. But I think I owe him the chance. Daniel's voice softened. Then tell him I don't want pity. I just want to be heard. You'll get that, Dad, Ethan promised. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of helicopters. He rushed to the window. A black motorcade was pulling into his father's modest neighborhood. Trump had come. Daniel Cross stood on his porch, cane in hand, wearing his old firefighter jacket. When Trump stepped out, Daniel's face was unreadable. Mr. Cross, Trump greeted warmly, extending his hand. Daniel hesitated, then shook it. Didn't think you'd actually come, he said quietly. When I say I'll meet someone, I show up, Trump replied with a smile. Ethan stood nearby, stunned as cameras rolled. But Trump wasn't performing. He was focused entirely on Daniel. Let's talk, Trump said. Daniel gestured to two old chairs on the porch. Sit, he said gruffly. But I warn you, I don't mince words. Trump grinned. Neither do I. Ethan watched as two men, one powerful, one forgotten, began an unexpected conversation. Daniel leaned forward. I gave this city everything. 40 years of service, fires, rescues, nights without sleep. When I retired, they said there wasn't enough money. My pension disappeared. Trump nodded, listening intently. I lost my home, Daniel continued. My wife got sick. And I had to start over in a rented apartment. You know what it's like to start over at 65? Daniel's voice trembled as he spoke. Across the table, President Trump's gaze was firm, yet filled with understanding. It shouldn't be this way, Daniel sighed. You talk about rebuilding America. But people like me, we were the bricks. Now we're just dust. Trump listened silently, not interrupting once. When Daniel finally stopped speaking, Trump's voice was quiet, but resolute. You're right, he said. America stands strong because of men like you. Ethan watched in stunned silence. His father, a man who hadn't trusted anyone in years, was finally being heard. Trump leaned forward, meeting Daniel's weary eyes. Give me 1 week, he said. Let me see what can be done. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. You politicians always say that. Trump smiled faintly. Then give me a chance to prove I'm not like the rest. When the cameras packed up and left, Trump stayed behind. No press, no speeches. Just a quiet, genuine conversation. Mr. Cross, Trump said gently, I can't promise miracles, but I can promise effort. I'll speak to the city and federal departments. We'll review cases like yours. Daniel studied him carefully. Why me? Because every big problem starts with one person's story, Trump replied. And yours is the story of a forgotten America. Daniel's eyes glistened. If you mean that, maybe there's still hope. Trump placed a hand on his shoulder. Hope never left. We just stopped looking for it. Ethan stood near the doorway, overwhelmed. The man he'd once resented had done something no one else ever had. He listened. As Trump's motorcade pulled away, Daniel whispered, He's different, isn't he? Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, Dad, he really might be. By the next morning, the internet was ablaze. Headlines read, Trump visits veteran firefighter. Unexpected kindness stuns viewers. Others accused Ethan of staging a publicity stunt. Ethan ignored the noise. But his producer, Clara, burst into his office, waving her phone. Ethan! The ratings broke every record. 80 million views overnight. Ethan sighed. This isn't about ratings anymore, Clara smirked. Then what is it about? He hesitated. It's about truth. Maybe I've been wrong about some people. Later that day, a call came from Trump's staff. The president asked us to let you know. The review for pension reform begins next week. Ethan froze. He actually meant it? Yes, the voice replied. He always does. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something stir inside him: faith. A week later, a sealed envelope arrived at his studio. Inside was a handwritten letter on White House stationery. Ethan, your father's story reminded me why leadership matters. We've approved the review of pension cases for retired emergency workers. Thousands like your dad will finally receive what they've earned. Donald J. Trump.
I should have
Ethan's
listened to
hands
that
trembled.
last word.
He rushed
The
to his
cracks appeared
father's
slowly.
house.
Late
Daniel
nights,
read the letter
unexplained
slowly,
trips,
tears
the
filling
faint
his
trace of
eyes.
a perfume that wasn't
It's
mine.
real, he whispered.
I noticed,
Ethan
of course,
nodded.
but I pretended not to.
It's real.
Smart
Daniel
people
looked
do
up
that
at
at
his son.
first. You
Maybe
watch,
I misjudged him.
gather proof,
Maybe you did
wait
too.
for the right moment.
Ethan smiled faintly.
When my daughter
Maybe
began
we
drawing
both learned
pictures of
something.
Daddy and Aunt Lily
That
hugging,
night,
I
Ethan
understood.
posted the letter online.
Children don't invent
Within
betrayal.
hours, it went viral.
They just see it
Millions
plainly.
shared it.
A week later,
People
I booked
began
the
writing
flight.
about lost
Not for
pensions,
him, but for me,
broken
for the final
systems,
act.
and newfound
While he
hope.
slept, I stayed awake.
Across the
I
nation, for the
memorized
first
the
time
way
in
his fingers
years,
moved
people
across
felt
the keyboard
seen.
and used it to reproduce
News
his
tickers
passwords.
flashed. Trump keeps
I uncovered
promise to
how he
veteran
stashed money,
firefighter.
the secret accounts, the hidden
TV host
messages.
changes
Every
tone
lie
after
became a
emotional
breadcrumb leading
encounter.
to his downfall.
Clara told Ethan,
And when the
"You've
moment
become
arrived,
the
I
voice
didn't
of working
confront him.
Americans.
I
They
unraveled
trust
him.
you?"
First, I
Ethan
moved all our
chuckled.
shared funds
That's
into an account
ironic.
under my name.
I didn't trust anyone.
Then I forwarded his messages,
Soon,
every photo,
donations
every
poured
I love
in
you,
for a new
to
fund
Lily and to
supporting
her
retired
fiancé.
firefighters. Trump matched every dollar. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about humanity. On live television, Ethan said, "I learned that sometimes change doesn't start with anger. It starts with listening." Viewers flooded the network with messages of gratitude. Watching from the Oval Office, Trump smiled quietly. "He finally gets it," he said. A month later, Ethan received a call from the White House. "The president would like to meet you and your father privately." They flew to Washington, unsure of what to expect. When they entered the Oval Office, Trump greeted them warmly. "Daniel, Ethan, good to see you both." Daniel smiled softly. "Never thought I'd be here," Trump chuckled. "Most people don't." He handed Daniel a document, an official notice restoring his full pension with complete back pay. Daniel stared, stunned. This is real?" Trump nodded. "Completely." Daniel rose shakily and saluted. "Thank you, Mr. President." Trump returned the salute. "No, thank you for everything you gave." Ethan stood in silence, emotion swelling in his chest. Before they left, Trump turned to him. "You know, you changed this too." Ethan frowned. "Me?" Trump nodded. "Your anger, it opened a door. Most people just shout. You challenged me and gave me a chance to act." Ethan was speechless. He hadn't realized his defiance had led to something so meaningful. "Sometimes confrontation leads to understanding," Trump said. "That's how progress starts." Ethan nodded slowly. "Maybe we both needed that moment." Trump smiled. "Maybe America did." They shook hands, the handshake that never happened on live TV, and this time, it meant something. Back home, Daniel became a local hero. News vans filled the street. Neighbors came with gifts and thanks. Ethan noticed a change in himself, too. He was calmer, kinder, more human. He opened his next show with a new question. Who have we stopped listening to? Ratings soared again, but this time it wasn't for conflict. It was for compassion. Every night, Ethan replayed the moment Trump had looked him in the eye and said, "Maybe we can figure out what went wrong." Months later, the story sparked national reform. Thousands of retired firefighters and city workers had their cases reopened. News anchors called it the Cross Effect. Trump signed the Emergency Worker Protection Act into law, citing Daniel Cross's case as its inspiration. At the signing ceremony, Ethan and Daniel stood beside him, humbled and proud. When reporters asked Trump why he followed through, he replied, "Because every forgotten person deserves to be remembered." Ethan realized then, one act of decency can move an entire nation. At a national ceremony, both father and son were honored for inspiring change. "I spent years believing no one cared," Daniel said through tears. "But I was wrong. People still do. We just have to remind them," Ethan added softly. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding the courage to see the good again." The audience rose to their feet, applauding through tears. In the front row, Trump smiled, not as a politician, but as a man who had kept his word. That night, Ethan and his father sat on the same porch where it all began. "Never thought this old place would be famous," Daniel chuckled. "You earned it, Dad," Ethan said. Daniel looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, you started all this by not shaking his hand." Ethan smiled. "Yeah, and he ended it by offering his." They sat in silence watching the sunset. No more words were needed. Months later, Ethan aired his final episode of the season. He replayed the clip of that first tense moment, the refusal, the stare, the pride. "Sometimes pride blinds us from seeing humanity," he said. "I thought anger made me strong, but compassion, that's what truly changes things." He looked straight into the camera. "If you ever get the chance to listen instead of judge, take it. It might just change the world." Millions watched in silence. Hashtags like "Listen First" and "Heartwarming Story" trended worldwide. Years later, Daniel's name was engraved on a new national monument honoring emergency workers. Ethan stood beside him, older but deeply grateful. Trump attended the unveiling, shaking Ethan's hand once more. "Your father's story changed this country," Trump said softly. Ethan smiled. "You kept your word." "That changed me," Trump nodded. "We all grow when we listen." As applause echoed around them, Ethan looked at the monument and remembered how it all began. With a handshake he refused to give. Now he understood. Sometimes the hardest beginnings lead to the most powerful endings, and everyone watching knew. This wasn't just a story about politics. It was a story about pride, redemption, and the quiet power of truly listening.